Oof, I don't know, folks. If we don't get a heat break soon, I'm going to have to start putting my hair up when I film. What do you think? Do you think some little lynx tails would work best there? Maybe I'll give it a try next video session, because it's just really too hot for this. And my full coat on like that. Right, there is a hill in Wales that no one dares sit on. They say if you do, something will happen. You'll be hurt, or you'll see something wondrous. Most people choose not to find out, but one king tried it anyway. And what he sees isn't violence or a vision. It's a woman, dressed in gold and gliding past on a white horse. This is the story of Powell and His Bride, a tale of magical courtship, promised betrayal, and a wedding interrupted by the worst guest imaginable. I'm Empty Lynx, author, artist and indie dev, and this is Storybite. And if you enjoy the lore behind the language we use every day, the philosophy behind the punctuation which shapes how we communicate, deep diving into ancient fairy tales and folklore and understanding how they still impact the stories or become the stories we see every day, or perhaps you just enjoy having a nice calming tale read to you with a dark screen, either to help you relax or perhaps even put you to sleep. We've got those up there too. Do me a favour, do the algorithm-y thing. Hit subscribe, join me on the journey. If you get something out of these stories and videos, give it a like. It tells the algorithm gods that the content I provide is worthwhile and has merit. And if you'd like to be notified when I drop a new video, which is just about every day, ring the bell and it will notify you next time a video drops. Now let's get back into the story of Powell and his princess. This is Storybite. The Mount of Macbeth. Not far from the castle where King Powell had his court, there was a hillock called the Mount of Macbeth. It was the common belief that some strange adventure would befall anyone who should sit upon that mound. He would receive blows or wounds, or else he would see something wonderful. Thus it came to pass that none but peaceful bards had ever sat upon the mound. Never a warrior or a common man had risked sitting there. The general fear felt and the awe inspired by the place was just too great. But after his adventure of being the king of fairyland for a whole year, everything else to Powell seemed dull and commonplace. So, to test his own courage and worthiness of kingship, Powell assembled all his lords at Macbeth. After the night's feasting, revelry and storytelling, Powell declared that the next day he would sit upon the enchanted mound. When the sun was fully risen, Powell took his seat upon the mound, expecting that, all of a sudden, something unusual would happen. For some minutes nothing, whether event or vision, took place. Powell has already ruled fairyland for a year. He's worn another man's face, slept beside a queen without touching her, struck once, but not twice, and he's not easily shaken. So when he hears of the enchanted mound, a hill that promises either pain or a vision, he does what kings rarely do. He dares to sit. This is mythic pattern making, a physical ascent that signals an emotional trial, a literal hill that says, this will change you. What Powell expects is magic. What he gets is a woman. Now, is that not magic incarnate? The woman in gold. Then he lifted up his eyes and saw approaching him a white horse on which rode a lady. She was dressed in shining garments as if made of gold. Evidently she was a princess, yet she came not very near. Does anyone among you know whom this lady is? Asked Powell of his chieftains. Not one of us, was the answer. Thereupon Powell ordered his vassals to ride forward. They were to greet her courteously and inquire who she was. But now the predicted wonder took place. She moved away from them, yet at a quiet pace that suited her. Though the knights spurred their horses and rode fast and furiously, they could not come any nearer to her. They galloped back and reported their failure to reach the lady. Then Powell picked out others and sent them riding after the lady. but each time one and all returned, chagrined with failure. A woman had beaten them. So the day closed with silence in the castle hall. There was no merrymaking or storytelling that night. The next day Powell sat again on the mound, and once again the golden lady came near. This time Powell himself left his seat upon the mound, leapt on his fleetest horse, and pursued the maiden, robed in gold, on the white horse. But she flitted away as though she had done before from the knights. Again and again, though he could get nearer and nearer to her, he failed.
Enter Rhiannon, and let's be clear, this is not a passive fairy princess. She doesn't wait, she rides. She approaches Powell without speaking, then turns away. When he sends his knights after her, they fail. No matter how fast they ride, she always stays ahead. This is a magical motif known as the pursuit test. But this time, it's not just about speed, it's about consent. No one catches Rhiannon by force. They succeed only when they ask. Ask, don't chase.
Then the baffled king cried out in despair, "O maiden fair, for the sake of him whom thou lovest, stay for me." Evidently the lady, who lived in the time of castles and courts, did not care to be wooed in the style of cavemen. Such manners did not suit her, but with the change of method of speaking of love, her heart melted. Besides, she was a kind woman, and she took pity on horses as well as on men. Sweet was her voice when she answered most graciously, "I will stay gladly, and it were better for thy horses, hadst thou asked me properly long ago." To his questions as to how and why she came to him, she told her story as follows.
Powell tries chasing, but he fails. He tries force, and he fails. Only when he speaks and asks, prays, does Rhiannon stop, and she responds with a Swiftian bite. "It were better for thy horses hadst thou asked me properly long ago." Let's pause there, because this moment rewrites the entire courtship narrative. Rhiannon is not a prize, she's the participant, and she chooses him only because he finally asks. And only because he asks with care. This is love through permission, magic through manners, and she's not just beautiful, she is strategic. Rhiannon's terms.
I am Rhiannon, descended from the august and venerable one of old. My aunts and uncles tried to make me marry against my will a chieftain named Gwal, an auburn-haired youth, son of Clyd, but because of my love to thee would I have no husband, and if you reject me, I will never marry any man. As heaven is my witness, were I to choose among all the damsels and ladies of the world, thee would I choose, cried Powell. After that, it was agreed that Powell should go to the palace of the august and venerable one of old, and claim her for his bride. So when 12 months had passed, Powell, with his retinue of 100 knights, all splendidly horsed and finely apparelled, presented himself before the castle. There he found his fair lady, and a feast already prepared, at which he sat with her. On the other side of the table were her father and mother.
Rhiannon's story is heartbreak with agency. Her family wants her to marry Gwal, a man she does not love. She refuses. She rides alone to find King Powell. She's not rescued, she rescues herself by rewriting the script. She names her desire, she names her timeline, and she sets the terms. In 1 year, come to the palace, claim me properly. This is what fairy tale feminism looks like. Sovereignty and softness. Autonomy dressed in gold. The wedding.
In the midst of this joyous occasion, when all was gaiety, they talked together, in strode a youth clad in sheeny satin. He was of noble bearing and had auburn hair. He saluted Powell and his knights courteously. At once Powell, the lord of Macbeth, invited the stranger to come and sit down as a guest beside him. "Not so," replied the youth, "I am a suitor, and I have come to crave a boon of thee." Without guile or suspicion, Powell replied innocently, Ask what ye will, if in my power, it shall be yours. But Rhiannon chided Powell. She asked, "Oh, why did you give him such an answer?" "But he did give it," cried the auburn-haired youth. Then turning to the whole company of nobles, he appealed to them. "Did he not pledge his word before you all to give me what I asked?" Then turning to Powell, he said, "The boon I ask is this, to have thy bride, Rhiannon. Further, I want this feast and banquet to celebrate in this place our wedding." At this demand, Powell seemed to have been struck dumb. He did not speak, but Rhiannon did.
And here comes Gwal, the original wedding crasher. He walks in, elegant and polite, asks for a favour in front of the whole court. And Powell, too trusting, he says yes. But what does Gwal ask for? Rhiannon, and the feast meant to celebrate her wedding to Powell. This is public consent twisted into a weapon, and Powell, bound by honour, is trapped. He gave his word, and now his bride is being handed to another man. Rhiannon reclaims the script.
"Be silent as long as thou wilt," she cried, "but surely no man ever made worse use of his wits than thou hast done. For this man, to whom thou gavest thy oath of promise, is none other than Gwal, the son of Clyd. He is the suitor from whom I fled to come to you while you sat on the Narberth mound. Now out of such trouble, how should the maiden, promised to 2 men, be delivered?" Her wit saved her for the nonce. Powell was bound to keep his word, but Rhiannon explained to Gwal that it was not his castle or his hall, so he could not give the banquet. But in a year from that date, if Gwal would come for her, she would be his bride. Then a new bridal feast would be set for the wedding. In the meantime, Rhiannon planned with Powell to get out of the trouble. For this purpose she gave him a magical bag, which he was to use when the right time should come. Quickly the 12 months passed, and then Gwal appeared again to claim his bride, and a great feast was spread in his honour. All were having a good time, when in the midst of their merriment a beggar appeared in the hall. He was in rags, and carried the usual beggar's wallet for food or alms. He asked only that, out of the abundance on the table, his bag might be filled. Gwal agreed, and ordered his servants to attend to the matter. But the bag never got full. What they put into it, or how much, made no difference. Dish after dish was emptied. By degrees, most of the food on the table was in the beggar's bag. "My soul alive, will that bag ever get full?" asked Gwal. "No, by heaven, not unless some rich man shall get into it, stamp it down with his feet, and call out, 'Enough!'" Then Rhiannon, who sat beside Gwal, urged him to attempt the task by putting his 2 feet in the bag to stamp it down. No sooner had Gwal done this than the supposed beggar pushed him down inside the bag. Then drawing the mouth shut, he tied it tight over Gwal's head.
Rhiannon doesn't cry. She strategizes. She tricks Gwal by honouring the social contract, but stretching its edges. She tells him, "This isn't our castle. Come back in a year, and then I'll marry you." And while Gwal agrees, she and Powell get to work. This is power of wit under pressure. Rhiannon plays the long game, not with swords, but with timing, props, and poetry. She writes her escape plan and gives Powell the pen. Badger in the bag.
Then the beggar's rags dropped, and there stood forth the handsome leader Powell. He blew his horn, and in rushed his knights, who overcame and bound the followers of Gwal. Then they proceeded to play a merry game of football, using the bag in which Gwal was tied, as men in our day kick a pigskin. One called to his mate or rival, "What's in the bag?" and the others answered, "A badger." So they played the game of badger in the bag, kicking it around the hall.
1 year later, at Gwal's feast, a beggar enters. It's Powell in disguise, carrying a magic bag. He asks Gwal to fill it, but the bag never gets full, until the beggar says, "It will fill if a rich man steps inside and says, enough, Gwawl does, and Powell ties the bag shut. Then they kick it around the hall like a ball. This isn't just trickery. This is symbolic role reversal. The man who tried to claim a woman becomes the object, the joke, the badger in the bag. Bound by oath.
They did not let the prisoner out of the bag until he had promised to pay the pipers, the harpers, and the singers who should come to the wedding of Powell and Rhiannon. He must give up all his claims and register a vow to never take revenge. This oath given and promises made, the bag was opened and the agreement solemnly confirmed in presence of all. Then Gwawl and every one of his men, the knights and servants, were let go, and they went back to their own country.
Powell could have ended him, but instead he demands a promise. No revenge, full surrender, and pay for the musicians at our wedding. This isn't punishment, it's restorative justice with flair. No bloodshed, just vows. No battlefield, just a banquet. And that's when the bag opens. Gwawl leaves in shame, and Rhiannon, she's finally free to marry the man she chose. The real wedding.
A few evenings later, in the large banqueting hall, Powell and Rhiannon were married. Besides the great feast, presents were given to all present, high and low. Then the happy pair made their wedding journey to Gwal's palace at Macbeth. There the lovely bride gave a ring or a gem to every lord and lady in her new realm, and everyone was happy. The end.
No one steals this wedding. Rhiannon walks freely. Powell stands beside her, not in front of her. And the gifts flow. Not just feasts and rings, but story closure. This is a fairy tale that understands what real power looks like. Not force, not blood, but mutual choice. And a little bit of clever reversal. Why this story still hits. This story began with a man sitting on a magical hill. It ends with a woman beside him, not given, but chosen. Rhiannon isn't rescued. Powell isn't perfect. But together they become more than a couple. They become a mythic balance of respect, cunning, and trust. So if you've ever rewritten your own ending, and if you've ever waited a year just to say, I told you so, this tale, it's yours. This has been Storybite, and I'm MT Lynx. Next time someone says fairy tales are predictable, show them the bag, and the girl who turned it into a ball. And now you know. I'll see you in the next video. This one, right here.